The evening was supposed to be simple. My son Daniel had called 2 days earlier and said he wanted to bring someone to dinner. His voice sounded calm, maybe a little formal, but I assumed that was just the nerves of introducing a new partner to a parent. Daniel had never rushed relationships. Even as a teenager, he was cautious about people, thoughtful in a way that sometimes made him seem older than he was. So when he said, "Her name's Elena," I took that as a quiet sign that it was serious. I cleaned the house more than necessary that afternoon. Nothing dramatic, just the usual rituals people perform when they want a first meeting to go well. By the time they arrived, the sun was already dipping behind the trees across the street. Elena walked in first. She was poised, well dressed, and carried herself with a kind of effortless composure. Her smile was immediate, warm in appearance, and she spoke with the careful clarity of someone who rarely feels unsure of a room. Nothing about her behavior was rude. In fact, the opposite. She complimented the house, thanked me for inviting her, asked thoughtful questions about the neighborhood. If someone had asked me in that first 10 minutes whether I liked her, I would have said yes, but somewhere beneath that politeness there was a faint tension I couldn't quite place. Not in her. In Daniel. We sat down for dinner and conversation began to move easily enough. She talked about her work, her recent move to the city, the places she and Daniel had visited over the past few months. That part caught my attention. Months. The timeline seemed longer than what Daniel had mentioned before. But I let it pass. Halfway through dinner, I felt something under the table. A hand. Daniel's. His fingers squeezed my hand once, then twice, then a third time. 3 quick pulses. For a second I didn't react. My mind had to travel backward years before the meaning settled into place. 3 squeezes. When Daniel was a kid, we used to take long road trips together. Crowded gas stations, unfamiliar towns. Sometimes he would feel overwhelmed but didn't want to cause a scene, so we invented a signal. 3 squeezes meant I need help, but I can't say it out loud. He hadn't used that signal since he was maybe 12. I kept my face neutral and continued listening to Elena describe a hiking trip they'd taken recently. Maybe it had been accidental. But a minute later the pressure returned. 3 squeezes again. This time there was no mistaking it. Across the table, Elena smiled at something she had just said. Daniel nodded beside her, but his shoulders remained tight, his posture unusually rigid. I began paying closer attention. She answered questions quickly, sometimes before Daniel finished forming his responses. When I asked him about a project at work he had mentioned months earlier, Elena jumped in with an explanation about how he had decided it wasn't the right direction. Daniel nodded again, but something about the moment felt slightly rehearsed. Not controlled in an obvious way. Just managed. I shifted the conversation toward older topics, friends he used to see regularly, weekend plans he had once talked about. Each time, Elena gently reframed the answers. Actually, we've been focusing on different things lately. Daniel realized those plans weren't really necessary. The tone remained polite. But Daniel spoke less and less. At one point I stood up and said I needed help bringing something in from the garage. Daniel started to rise from his chair. Elena placed her hand lightly on his arm. "I can help," she said. Her voice was still friendly, still calm. Daniel sat back down. Later in the evening I suggested we step outside for a moment to see a repair I'd done on the back porch railing. Elena's phone rang just as we reached the door. She glanced at the screen and stepped away into the hallway to answer it. For the first time since they arrived, Daniel and I stood alone. I didn't ask what the signal meant. I just looked at him. That was enough. His voice was quiet when he finally spoke. "She's not bad," he said carefully. "But everything moved fast. Faster than I realized." He explained it in fragments. Small decisions that gradually became shared decisions. Shared decisions that eventually became expectations. Social plans shifting without discussion. Friends he saw less often. Financial commitments he hadn't fully thought through. None of it dramatic enough to alarm someone watching from the outside. But together it had begun to feel like something tightening around him. "I don't know how to step back now," he said. The hallway remained quiet, except for Alina's faint voice somewhere near the front door. I nodded slowly. The signal had never meant, "Solve the problem for me." It meant, "Help me find the way out." Inside the house I made a simple phone call. An old friend of mine, someone who worked professionally with people navigating difficult relationships and emotional pressure. I didn't hide the call from Daniel. I made it in front of him. An appointment was arranged for the next morning. No accusations. No confrontation. Just a conversation with someone trained to recognize patterns that families sometimes struggle to name. When we returned to the dining room, Elena had finished her call. Dinner continued as if nothing unusual had happened. She laughed easily, thanked me again for the meal, complimented the dessert. From the outside, the evening looked entirely normal. When they left, Daniel hugged me quickly before following her to the car. No words passed between us. They didn't need to. The signal had been heard. And sometimes that's the first and most important step. Simply letting someone know they are not alone in a room that appears perfectly calm to everyone else.